Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Path of Exile build guide video. In this one, we're going to be talking about the Death's Oath build. It is a skill granted by the Death's Oath unique body armor, which gives us a Righteous Fire-like chaos damage over time area of effect around us, which we're going to utilize as our main source of clearing damage. However, there's a little bit of a caveat to this one. Anytime you kill something, you're going to take a little bit of chaos damage back to you. This is going to be mitigated through a different variety of sources from the build, which I'm going to go through in this video. In the descriptions below, you're going to be able to check a link to the forum guide, which I'll be typing down. And in there, you will be able to pick up both the low budget POB as well as the high budget POB that I made for this build. And make sure that if you're watching this video long after I posted this to YouTube, that you always check the forum guides, because they will always be updated before any new league releases. So to start off with, there are multiple ways of playing this build, and the way I designed my version is to focus on clear speed, which led me to taking up the acrobatics and face acrobatics keystones for consistent dodging. Now this defensive layer is great for mapping, but not very trustworthy for endgame bosses. The build can easily handle Cirrus, but the harder Maven invitations can be very difficult with this build to manage without massive investments. We are combining the acrobatic keystones with Wind Dancer to further enhance our safety. Besides the generic dodging, this build will want you to pick up a glorious vanity jewel of Sibaka. This provides us with the keystone Divine Flesh. This allows for us to make chaos resistance a very strong defensive layer, which helps mitigate the self-harm provided by the Death's Oath item, as well as any other chaos damage taken, and the Divine Flesh makes the 50% of elemental damage taken be mitigated by our chaos pool. This obviously means that we need to cap our chaos resistance as well. This is not going to be a problem with this build because it's very cheap to gear. Outside of the generic defensive layers, we are mass cursing thanks to the Occultist ascendancy nodes and skill tree points. The curse we use is one offensive curse being Despair, which lowers enemies' chaos resistances, and two defensive ones being Temporal Chains, which slows enemies down and enfeeble, which makes enemies hits both miss and deal less damage. This is also combined with the unique helmet Viridi's Veil. This grants us some crazy defensive perks if you're using a magic ring. Now in the low budget version, we're only going to use one magic ring, which will be in the left slot. This is to make us take 0 extra damage from critical strikes, as well as making enemies hitting you unlucky. Now what this means is that the damage you take from a hit will roll twice, and the game will then take the lowest of those two rolls, and that is the damage that you receive. This is a very, very effective defensive layer. These defensive layers are extensive, they're effective. It also makes the build very, very tanky for even tier 16 mapping, despite having a low amount of actual life. The rest of the gearing for the build is very straightforward. We'll want to use an In Presence amulet rolled with Despair to make it reserve 0 mana when combined with the Blasphemy support gem. Etziri's Boot is a great defensive choice to further emphasize on the dodging, whilst the rest of the pieces can be very easily just be rare with high life rolls or resistances and attributes based on your needs. Just keep in mind that you'll want to make sure that you have your chaos resistance capped if you're using a Divine Flesh keystone. Weapon choice for this build heavily depends on the playstyle, and I personally prefer the Caustic Arrow due to recent changes, and this means that we'll be going for a generic plus level of Socket the Gems bow with a damage over time multiplier mod on it. Just having those two is very cheap, and for the higher budget you're going to want to multi-craft it, and it's going to cost a bunch of exalteds. But for the low budget you're looking for a level of Socket the Gems together with damage over time multiplier on it. The quiver that we're using is very generic and is going to be one of the best approaches for increasing your HP, as well as helping with both resistances as well as chaos resistance, as these type of quivers without any damage mods is very, very cheap. Moving over to the skill tree, it is extremely straightforward. As you're leveling, you have the opportunity to level with whichever spells you want to or feel comfortable with. You can do that with Freezing Pulse and Frost Bomb, go over to level 12 and go for Stormbrands. I like doing whichever I want to feel and I feel comfortable with till I get to level 28, upon which I'm going to use the Spellslinger support. And I combine Spellslinger with a Contagion, and I have another Spellslinger set up for Essence Drain and another one for Soul Rend. Now this allows me to have a lot of damage over time effects, which is really comfortable, and I usually spec in through the spell damage nodes up to the Arcanist Dominion and then through the life nodes, and then rush up for HP and go to the right and skipping the entire approach of Divine Flesh and the Glorious Vanity obviously, and you push yourself over to the Written in Blood and then pick up the Aura Reservation nodes. And then after that I'm just focused on extra damage over time such as Atrophy, Growth and Decay, moving through the Cold-Hearted calculations, and down to Lethal Assault, Resourcefulness, and going through the Entropy for more damage over time to further scale the damage that we're getting as we're leveling. So that is what I like to do, but there's a lot of option and free will of how you can approach it. Normally, once you got to that point of the tree, you then have the free will of going with extra HP if you feel that you need defense, or extra damage if you feel that your defense is fine. I would, once you come down here, would prioritize picking up the Face Rack. This is very comfortable during the leveling of the axe, however. The Ascendancy nodes is also very straightforward. Since we want to focus on capping our chaos resistance, I normally go for Void Beacon first, since I am leveling with Spellslingers normally from level 28, and then picking up Withering Presence. This allows me to get more chaos over time, including the withered effect on enemies to make them take more chaos damage, which helps your leveling, but also the 60% chaos res, which helps significantly when you start to go into the higher end and actually equipping yourself with a Death's Oath unique item. After this, I tend to wait with the Malediction by removing the Temporal Chains curse and applying that when I'm done with the Uber Lab, and instead go for the Profane Bloom when I'm playing. This allows you to have a 40% chance to make enemies that are cursed that you kill explode, which helps significantly versus things like Bone Husks and Porcupine, or as people like to call it, the Spiky Boys. So that's how we progress the skill tree. To finalize this guide, we'll go over the gems. For single target boss fights, we'll be using this in the bow, and that is a Caustic Arrow combined with Concentrated Effect, Vicious Projectile, Swift Affliction, Void Manipulation, and Damage on full life. Our clearing damage is coming entirely from the Death's Oath, and it is crucial to point out that you do not need this item to be 6-linked. It's enough that it has 6 sockets. The support gems will be used in this one is Less Duration, Life Tap, Swift Affliction, Void Manipulation, Efficacy, and Concentrated Effect. Now you could use an increased area of effect, but I prefer the Concentrated Effect and let the Profane Bloom Ascendancy node take care of the clearing. The remaining 4 links will be a Withering Step setup, which is supported by Enhance if you can afford one, Second Wind, and Life Tap. And by having a level 1 Life Tap in this setup, we'll be able to initiate the Life Tap buff every time we use our Withering Step. This initiates the damage gain to our Death's Oath aura, since we're supporting the Death's Oath with a Life Tap support as well, which we should have at a higher level. Our other 4 link here is a Curse setup, which will be using Blasphemy, Temporal Chains, Enfeeble, and Despair. And the last 4 link will be the remaining details to finish the build off, and those gems are Malevolence, Smoke Mine, Second Wind, and a Portal gem if you wish. If you decide to use Second Wind in here, it is important to note that Malevolence should not be linked together, or it will make it reserve more mana if you link it together with Second Wind. You can break a 4 link by using an Orb of Fusing to create less links in it if you so wish, or if you need that for this to work. I believe that's it for the build guide. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If so, let me know in the comments below, and leave a like and hit the subscribe button for more content. Until next time, Exiles, as always, stay safe and keep rocking.